not quite the final battle, but the largest battle in the system, and the capstone to the Italian campaign. This is Pavia. It's something of a mess. It makes sense. It's just a matter of it's big and there's a lot of special stuff going on. So let me take a look at the historical. So I thought Francis was here. I guess he's not. Yeah, he should be. There he is. Francis is our official overall commander, but I had something else that said someone was on the Spanish side, I think. The overall commander is Charles Lannoy, Viceroy of Naples. He's over here. You have a French blockade of the city. Let's not call it a siege, really. And the Spaniards coming in to relieve it. Now, let's talk a little about the terrain. I haven't fully set it up. I'm so bad at putting the standards down because they're sort of you got to really kind of understand everything to put the standards down. This standard, I know where I want it. It's going to go up here. A French standard, a lot harder to decide because it's not absolutely clear where the French are going to be safe. Probably somewhere in this guy's vicinity for various reasons. Okay. So the terrain is very interesting here. You have the city, the pontoon bridge going across there. You have a large walled compound, I mean huge, outside the city. There are some breaches. There's one here. There appear to be additional breaches here and here, although it says there's only one breach. It has wall gates, and it has a big opening down here near the city. This is basically a giant park inside here with some works inside of it and a castle here. This river is, of course, impassable. Some marshy land. The ground everywhere on this battlefield is a little wet, so the artillery is going to move more slowly. That's reflected in the terrain chart. The stars, I believe, are the special spaces that add to your flight point total. Your current flight points increase if you hold these. They improve your morale. I don't think anybody's sitting in one to begin with. The French are sitting in one, which adds to some interesting questions. I think they start with 2 more flight points because of that, but that's not absolutely clear. Yeah, but other than that, I think that's the rest of them have not yet been occupied, so we won't give them anything. Anything else we want to talk about before we go into the specific roles? We have some reinforcements that I think are free to come in on free activations. So yeah. So Alençon's 2 groups, 2 different groups. One has to completely come in before the other can come in. And that's part of this guy's command. They can't come in until Alençon is active. So they're kind of delayed. But for the Spanish, we have a big group of pike and then additional forces for Lannoy. These can come in either order. As far as I can tell, one has to come in completely before the other. In order to reduce the number of forces on the map, I quite likely want to bring the Illinois forces in first, although a big horde of pike is an impressive choice, and it actually has 2 leaders and some special rules regarding that. So it might not be as easy a choice as you like. The command rating is not good for those generals. This battle has 2 standards per side in the game, and that's the thing, is one of the standards is Alençon's group. One of them is in the other group, and it's really hard to figure out where the other group is going to stand. Especially when there's some Spaniards down here. I think the Spanish reinforcements come in up here, but there is a large force in Pavia that can come sortie out if the standard's exposed. That could be dangerous. During activation, when the French get a free activation, under normal terms, they get to activate one command that's associated with each standard. So their standard, one is Genelac, Montmorency, and Alençon. That's probably these 3. And Alençon's got his own special rules. The other standard is the rest of the force up here. When the Spanish get a free activation, they can activate one battle that is associated with one of the banners. The way this is worded is horrible. They can activate one battle that retires to one of the standards. So I spent a couple minutes thinking about, whoa, why would you want to activate a battle and retire it all the way to the standard all at once? Does that make sense? Is that a good thing ever? No, that's not what they mean. And then they can choose a battle from the other standard, but they have to roll a 3 or less to activate that. So they get less of a chance to double activate. Now, the Spanish standard, Pavia, is the only thing, the city garrison is the only thing that rallies to that. So basically, you have to choose, do you have any real need to do Pavia, or, are you just going to roll on the 3 or less and try to set that up? And I mean, conceivably, you could get your artillery into place and plink at these guys. You don't want to do it to these guys; it'll wake them up. But otherwise, there isn't a whole lot you want to do. You may want to come out and try to force this, though. Okay. There's another option during a free activation, which is you can try to activate multiple battles at once through a different mechanism. Now, the Spanish get to do this twice in a game, and the French only get to do it once, and this is marked with these markers. When you do a multiple activation, you move the marker down, and you roll a die. You have the die roll, rounding it down. A 0 is a 0. The adjusted number is the number of battles you can then activate in a single activation. And you don't have any restriction as to which ones they are. All leaders and units from those battles move and fire together, but they can't shock or charge at the same targets. The other kind of free activation, you move one formation, then the other formation. Like, you handle them completely separately. But here you get to work together to some extent, but you can't use a shock and charge at the same targets. I think that was probably a restriction on the other game that allowed the French to do this. And then you can choose any battle that was not just activated for continuation. You cannot do an army activation continuation on that. Okay, over here we have an extra leader, this Mark Stillick guy. The Imperial player can use either Frundsberg or Stoich's command rating to determine if a unit's in Frundsberg battle of command. And I don't think that's an exclusive war. I think that's kind of the wrong word. I think what I mean is you don't choose a single one to do. You can use, it should be an and. You can use Frundsberg and Stellix. I think that's not absolutely clear. But it says this allows him to split off a group with Stillich and lead him. All of Frundsberg's battle, including Stillich, is activated when the Imperial player activates. If at least a third of the landsnecks of this battle that are remaining are not within Frundsberg's command range, Frundsberg can't get Lannoy's bonus, which there's like a -2. It's kind of hard to read there because he has his own command as well. The battle starts out with mist. Each activation is counted until we hit 10. The mist will remain during all of those. This is each activation, and multiple activations count as an activation only. After that, each activation, you roll a die, and on a 6 or more, the mist goes away. So you get kind of a knowledge of how long it'll last, but it's not absolute. During the mist, non-artillery can only fire at adjacent range, and artillery firing more than 2 hexes lose 2 additional points because off their die roll. That should be +2. Right. No, -2. -2. To simulate the fact that they couldn't see what they're shooting at. Okay, so I told you about these locations with stars. Those are your effectiveness. No, I'm sorry. The effectiveness objectives, there's 3 of them. And I don't know how to remember them. Castel Mirabello. I think they're surrounded by the yellow. So it's going to be these 3. And the ones with 2, you have to hold both hexes. So what these do is, for each of those objectives you hold, your overall commander has a -1 from his effectiveness. You must be occupying it with a unit in order to get the bonus. All right. The French baggage train. All right, so this poor thing is stuck here, and this is going to kind of root the French into a location. The Spanish baggage train is somewhere down here, but it's not represented in the game. Any one friendly foot unit that's not a pike can stack with it. If it's alone, it cannot be attacked, but it'll be killed. And if that is captured, you roll a die for every Spanish Imperial unit in or adjacent to the baggage wagon to see if they loot. You subtract the shock defense. Well, add the shock defense. If you roll a 3 or more, you loot, and the unit that's doing that becomes disordered. Special rules on Alençon. That's this command and these 2 units, or 2 subcommands. So Alençon can't be activated until he's alerted. And we've got a little Alençon not alerted sign. Alençon is alerted if there's combat in the 5 Abbeys area. Any hex within 5 hexes of 2734, which is somewhere down here. Oh, there. This includes missile. He's got a chance of being alerted. Right. This includes missile fire or melee. After that, the French player can attempt to activate Alençon, but he has to make sure he's been alerted. He was given warning several times and didn't move. You roll a die. On a 4 or less, he's alerted. Excuse me. On a 5 or higher, he keeps sleeping. He's automatically alerted if you attack him. If a Spanish unit exits Pavia in a gate side, the gates that are near him, this one and this one, I guess. Or if a Spanish unit is outside Pavia's city walls and ends its move within 7 hexes and in line of sight of one of Alençon's units. So you can kind of sneak out and try to attack these. The problem is if you're in range of this, you got a problem. So you got to kind of sneak behind them and they can fall back. All kind of, it doesn't look terribly promising. But then again, waking Alençon up may not be that big a deal. He's not terribly effective. This is a timed engagement. The marker's set at 15, and the Spaniards are on the time limit here. The balance is heavily in favor of the Spanish. I think about 2 to 1. And as I said, the starred locations, they give you 2 points of flight level within for each one that you have, that you occupy. Yeah. And the French get an auto victory if they can reach and destroy the Pavia standard. And the baggage train is worth 2. The French flight level is 75. The Spanish is 65, but there are modifiers beyond what we talked about. When Lannoy's remaining battle comes in, he gets 25 flight points. I don't think the French get any more. So there might be a point where you're kind of forced to try to bring those in because you need the extra flight points. Okay, let's take a look at some of the forces, and then we're probably not going to play today. Right. Because there's some interest here. So these guys have some arquebusiers, pure up arquebusiers in the front, and then some mixed pike units. Here, this is mainly cav, some light cav archers, some light cav. I put those in the back because to me they're just damage waiting to happen. Every now and then you want to fling them out to screen something, but not much. And some men-at-arms. Up here, pike supported with some light cav and artillery. Bunch of artillery, a couple of pike, probably stronger than this, but not by a lot. We'll talk about what that is. Well, that's a couple of arquebusiers and an artillery. That's the one artillery unit that's deployed on the map. That's deployed unlimbered, which surprises me because I kind of would have wanted the Pavia stuff unlimbered, I guess, but I don't know. If I shoot at these, I wake them. I have a chance of waking Alençon up. And finally, down here, some straight pike. Alençon's got some arquebusiers, some sword and buckler, no missiles. Alençon's reinforcements, more of the same. And now for the Spanish. The Pavia garrison is a mix: arquebusiers, pike. I think there's a couple of sword and buckler, no missiles. There's some crappy militia, a couple of knights, and a couple of cannons. We talked about those guys over here. Here things get kind of weird. We got a whole contingent of arquebusiers, followed by a contingent of light cavalry and artillery. Now that's Illinois' force. There's more of it coming, and some of it's down here out of command. But I think actually there's a special rule about being out of command for Illinois. This force, no. B. These units were led, but there are enough commands already. Someone can't be out of command. I remember seeing that, but I don't know. Borgo Ticcio. I think that's these guys. I should have these guys in front of them. Okay. These units are never out of command, no matter their distance from Alençon or intervening units or command. And I don't know. They enter far away from him, I guess. But Illinois' forces, which are spread all over the place, don't seem to have that issue. So then let's go to the other. Behind that, there's a bunch of sword and buckler. They do have missiles. The reinforcements, Illinois' additional reinforcements, some heavy cav, some genitors, and some cannons. Not necessarily something you need to bring in, although the heavy cav can charge in this. And then the Frundsberg force, a whole ton of pikemen with arquebuses, which, you know, we know that has some serious capacity to swing the battle. Those big infantry units, in part because if you take damage on them, they get hurt. No, they're pretty damn good. Anyway, probably start this tomorrow, but maybe slip some in today. They're just about ready to actually start Pavia. Yeah, took a couple of days off. Yeah, Friday, Saturday thing. A lot of gaming on Saturday. And the question is, the Spanish have to go first. They're on a time limit. I am tempted to say that this is a time limit the French might be able to just run out, because this is such a big battle and the points are so high. If that's the case, it's a serious flaw. I'm not going to try to test that case out, but it is somewhat worrisome. Could the Spaniards... The Spaniards are supposedly heavily favored in this. If it runs down to, say 50-50 or whatever, by just running out the time limit on free activations, this could be a real problem. I don't really see... I'm not sure that I see an easy way. So like how many pike are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pike times 5 is 30 points. That's about half the value. I could probably eliminate those without too much trouble. Coming in across to these, that's going to be tricky. And I'm trying to look at what the strategy the Spanish want to use. My desire is to sweep down this way. All the points are down here and kind of relieve the town. And if these guys interfere, I'll deal with them as needed. I've got some sword and buckler units that are following as the rear guard. For that column right now. So they'll be able to take on a lot. But yeah, if continuations don't go well, the French had a lot of, they have a seizure negation and unsteady troops. Not exactly what you'd want. I gotta put my flags down too. Yeah, I was free to do that. So we have an into the breach, a seizure, and a negation. The negation is going to be useless, but I don't know that. Yeah, so here's the thing. If the French had 2 seizure, that would be 2 points that they could probably grab fairly easily in terms of the timer. 15 free activations. I don't know. I think it's probably like a 50-50 chance that the French could win the game that way, which seems to be better odds than if they fight it. But that doesn't seem like a reasonable way to play, so I'm not going to do that. But I want you to keep that in mind, that this scenario may have in its timer an inherent unbalancing, a feature that allows the French to improve their chances by doing something stupid, completely unbelievable in terms of the historical situation, which is just sit around and pass all the time. And it's one of the problems with the system and the timed engagements. Clearly, if the Spanish don't get the move on, the timer is perfectly fair. Anyway, for the Spaniards, I think I'm going to try to press on these, use the arquebusiers to go forward. Whether or not I want to do this, that can activate these. How big a deal is it that they get activated? They don't have a good leader. I don't feel like that's going to be too big a thing for the French, because they're going to want to be activating over here. But on their free activations, they would get that. Let me see. No, I don't see an Alençon. That includes this side of the map, so yeah. All right, let me get my flags down though. The Spanish standard can be placed anywhere. Pavia standards in the city. The French standards are on the north or south side of the map, respectively. Standards did not get a continuation, and they did not get the Pavia. You need to roll a 3 or less to get double activation on that. Which throws it back into the French hands. And yeah, we'll play. Why? I want a battle. I don't want something ridiculously ahistorical happen here. French also only got a single double activation. Over here, and then I pushed over here. I'd like to clear these guys out, but I don't know if these can do it, to tell you the truth. I just don't know if they're sufficient, and I'm a little worried of getting out of here. One thing that I didn't realize, and it's kind of nice that the artillery is not unlimbered in the city, is you can't shoot through the walls at all. Walls and city walls not allowed. So, not a terribly defensive position, actually. All along the walls, and it doesn't make sense. But I'll fix it somehow or another. Anyway, that's moved our missed marker forward a little bit. And we'll see what happens. I think a couple of pikes should be able to take a couple of arquebusiers down without any defensive forces, without any shock combat capabilities. But I'm not sure, because the arquebusiers can run away. The cannon can't run away, though. So if I can slip around behind the arquebusiers, at least I can take the damn cannon out and then figure out what I'm doing from there. All right, I guess I've got the zoom back where it belongs. Had a problem. This poor camera. I gotta get me another one, but I'm so afraid because I've got a brand new one, but it shows yellow everywhere. And I know Kev Sharp complained about this as well with all the cameras he's gotten except phone cameras, that they come out kind of too yellow. I guess I'll resort to it, but use a different battery. Spaniards went first. I did a sequence of things, shifting these here. They got the Pavian garrison to move, so I'm pulling it out. That caused the French, no momentum, no continuation, to pull back here. And I moved forward with these, and then I can't move these because I moved these, right? And then I went with continuation, brought Francis up. His troops are kind of getting tied up with that other battle, which is a bad thing in this system. I guess I could do a multiple activation or something, but my feeling is these light cav archers aren't particularly useful against the light cav. They're particularly not useful against the arquebusiers, but they might serve a good purpose against the sword and buckler troops. The arquebusiers, well, I think I'm going to be going against them with these pike without missiles, which is not really what I want. Trying to decide what to do with that artillery, whether I want to unlimber it up here where I probably can't stand, or somewhere further back where, you know, maybe there's some advantage, like I could get behind this wall or something. I haven't made that decision yet. I haven't had to. But I might get charged, and that would kind of suck. And I hope those, oh, those are Swiss pike. Uh-oh. They might not want to fight. All right. Let's see if we can lose this with the Spaniards. Unfortunately, I forgot about the mist rolls and marched up with these guys, fired, did some damage, and then realized, wait a minute, they can't fire at range 2. I don't want to close with those pike. But, yeah, I had already rolled a continuation, etc. Nothing over there. Over here, I pulled the cav over to screen so I can bring these guys up, but, hey, a hole developed. And now the French can try to smash into the Spaniards and do a lot of damage over there. Their first point, killing one of these arquebusiers by making it impossible to retreat. And otherwise, you can see I'm trying to exploit that, but I didn't get a continuation. So I think this is right. I may be one off, one too few. Trying to do the best that I can. Again, a lot of the finicky mechanical type stuff is bogging this one down more than most of the Men of Iron games, and the rules lookups, especially having to look up the point values of all these different types of units. Arquebus has been really bad to me in terms of how much shit I have to look up continuously. I don't know. I felt like Blood and Roses got worse than the other ones. This one is the worst of all that I've seen so far. And I'm finding it much, much harder than the GBOH in terms of just how much stuff I have to try to remember under this mechanism. And I find that kind of disturbing because it's clearly not as heavy a game as the GBOH, but it's at least taxing me heavier than those generally do. It's got a couple of momentums here, but they plowed forward with these guys, I think, first. Very, very effective. Let's see, they killed some arquebusiers, retired some, got rid of some of the sword and buckler guys. Decent amount of points beginning to accumulate there. And not in the greatest position. I would have liked a recuperation, but during that attack, during one of the continued attacks, their leader died. And so that's some more points against them. I pulled these cav mainly because they were likely to get a continuation. And then over here, starting to spill out again due to the continuation. We're at the point where the mist could go away at any time. It hasn't, so we didn't try to launch those. Just to get some shooting going, kill off some of the French. Those pikes really kind of want to advance, I guess, before they get screwed. But here's the thing. They advance, they get shot up by the arquebusiers. The arquebusiers probably do want to retreat. That was something I learned here. Well, it's hard to tell. The danger is they could end up engaged, and then they have to withdraw anyway, and that doesn't really make much difference. So I guess retreating or standing doesn't make much difference, but by retreating, they end up not engaged, but the French could advance and keep them so that they still have to withdraw in terms of paying the extra movement. But the big thing is taking an activation to move to get out of the area. Of course, they could continue to unload shot instead, or at distance, either way. So I think it kind of works out as it doesn't really make much difference. Over to the French activations. To get a single continuation. Our initial, we wiped these out, marched up here, did some hits against the sharp bowmen and the arquebusiers, doing some damage to both sides. It's looking pretty bad for the Spaniards there. And Then on our continuation, which there was a Trump attempt, but it got canceled, our archers came up, shot out, I think one of those short bow, shield and buckler guys. And then we also not charged, but attacked with a couple of cav under Francis. Bashed them back. At the end of that, the mist, or maybe before the end of it, I don't know, the mist rose. And so that roll is gone at least. One of the many things that I have to look up every single time, hey, is it a 6 or is it, is it a 6 or more, or is it more than a 6? Which one was it? Yeah. And there are just so many of those little lookups. I feel like each of the battles for this needs its own cheat sheet, basically, which you could certainly make, but pain in the butt. But the French are doing pretty well here. They've driven the Spanish flight up to 20. Their own is at 9 with 1 recovered. I have no idea where I am with these. I think I abandoned some. And I am sitting in 3. And they're such a pain to keep track of. Everything is in this. I'm sitting in 3 of them, so I should be up to, actually. These I was in and abandoned out. Yeah, I'm just not accounting for them well. I can always count them up if we're getting close and worry about it then. But right now, that's where we are. It's not really a big deal. You have to physically occupy them. It's not like, oh, I walked through it, it's mine. But yeah, the Spaniards look like they just got crushed. And I'm going to have to use my free activation to bring all my pike in. We'll see what that can do. With the mist gone, I can use these arquebusters to start firing. But again, there's not a lot I can do. I've got to choose, hey, if I want to use those arquebusters, I'm not going to get those guys in this turn. If I use them, though, or if I use this first and then go to the arquebusters, then, I can handle this situation better than I currently am, but I need more troops there badly. The French outnumber me over there. This, hey, I got a 40% chance of getting to move those. That's each turn. I'm not going to be expending effort on them. This is where the battle is. I feel like I'm, caught in this kind of losing trap here, but there's too many points here to give up. And these guys are really unlikely to get on through a continuation or anything. So I launched them first, and they did an okay job. They killed a pike unit, I think, engaged these mounted men-at-arms. So find their way out. And that meant I went back over here, got 1 continuation, and I shot a pike down there. I think I shot my way out of this problem. You can see he didn't recover. And now we're back on the French. The French activation pushes the line of arquebusiers back, destroying one of them that couldn't retreat. And then I'm also moving these forward, because the fact that I have these standards back here means I really can't let the Spaniards get through there. Now, one of the problems, these cav, but as long as I've got units, those can't engage anything unless the commander comes around with them. And he's sitting on the artillery right now. I can pull the artillery back and use it as part of my defensive line. I really need more troops up there for the Spaniards. And you can see the points, they're staying about equal, but I'm having this really pathological situation where I can't get disengaged from the combat. I had to move forward. The French had me really hard pressed. I'm not so sure that this is likely to be a Spanish victory. And in fact, unless I made some significant error in my tactics or whatever, I'm not really sure that this is particularly weighted in favor of the Spanish. There's 2 things going against them here. One is this was such a congested situation, I couldn't bring all my units on unless I moved forward, and that gave the French a chance to come up and kind of engage me. Once you're engaged, it's very hard to spend your free activation on something else. The dead leader certainly doesn't help. And then I'm left with what amounts to a pretty ugly situation now. Multiple battle activation happens during a free activation. That may be what I want to do. However, these guys can't reactivate if that's the case, so that becomes kind of a problem. I really am just not seeing a good solution to what's going on here. I'm just not able to bring the reinforcements in for the need to do things with the troops, and I don't know if I could have advanced less at any point here, that I didn't have that entry sort of clogged, both entries basically sort of clogged by the forces. The French just kind of came down on me hard. Kind of needed both these units to go, and I couldn't really guarantee anything. I did the special activation that's spent off of up here. Got one more coming. I got a pretty decent roll, a 7. That gave me 3 activations. I took these 2 and the Pavia. Could have pulled the Cav out. That probably would have been a good idea, except then I have to rely on a 3 for my continuation. Here I had a 4. Unfortunately, this leaves this cannon here because I did fail the continuation or whatever. And now it's back in the French hands. I didn't really do that much. I pulled back, took some shots, retired a bunch of units. If the French start losing more units, they're going to start losing points for them. But, it's not... It's still not a healthy looking situation for the Spaniards, and units like this is probably in a lot of trouble. So, I gotta remember the retired rules, whether or not, if there's no path back, I don't think they can retire. But I think other units don't block that. I'll have to look that up. In a weird situation, the way it's worded, it seems pretty clear, but if the unit is unable to trace a route to the hex with or adjacent to its standard, not blocked by enemy units in impassable terrain, it's eliminated. Now, they wouldn't mention enemy units if friendly units blocked it, but a retreat wouldn't work in most cases, although I kind of screwed up. I think one of my arquebusiers got killed for no good reason. Because you are allowed... If the retreat is blocked by a friendly arquebus, artillery, crossbow, longbow, sapper, or skirmisher, you can retreat through it, and it disorders the other unit or retires it. So I think actually I should get 2 of these points back, and one of these is retired instead. That's my problem. And that helps the Spaniards a little bit, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the real problem is the line's just collapsing. Something else I forgot a little bit about. These guys came forward. They fired a little bit, which I believe creates an alert chance. Any free activation after that, the French player can attempt to activate Alençon, but he must make sure he's been alerted first. To do this, I roll a die. If I get a 4 or less, I can use him. I'm not sure how much value there is to using him, except that his reinforcements, which boost, I think... I'll look through this crap. No, they don't. It's only the Spanish reinforcements which do this. So I'm going to ignore Alençon, but I can alert him at any point now that I want to. But I do have, I have other things I want to do more. Like I either want to move this or this more than I want to move Alençon. And I certainly don't want to waste die rolls, chances of activating him when I'm kind of engaged already. So the big question then is, which of those 2 is more important? I'm not sure yet. But over here, I definitely want to activate a force. I think I want to get rid of those arquebusiers. Because they're disordered, they can't retreat before combat. I got a pretty good chance of wiping them out and taking this cannon too. And that pretty much puts me in a position where I can wheel in and hit this. These are all light cav. They're totally useless. I guess they can run down a cannon, like this. But that's really about it. Or an option I didn't think of. I ended up choosing to move these guys. And these busted up the arquebusiers, pretty much destroyed them all. The points are now up to 34, worth a lot each, 3 points each. The other choice would have been to activate my standard, because I've got a lot of retired guys, and I'd kind of like to start moving them off there, but as of right now, I sense blood, and I want to finish, I want to finish them off and not face a strengthened Spanish force there. Did not get the continuation, which means it's not as bad as it could have been, but it looks pretty damn bad at this point. And I don't think I have much choice except to bring in another pile of troops. This is my only Spanish flag. That goes away. There's no more retired results. Those just become deaths. That's pretty much the death knell in this game. I can't afford that, so I've got to bring something in to try to block against that. I don't think it's going to work, but we'll do what we can, I guess. It's the one rule that's plagued me the worst in terms of making errors throughout this whole system. The Swiss intransigence, the Swiss unwillingness to attack, whatever, reluctance, I don't know, has hit me again, and I forgot to roll. So maybe those attacks against the arquebusiers couldn't have happened, but had I gotten, say, half the attacks off or something, they would have still had similar effects. It's not that big a difference. It could have gone much worse. We'll just leave it as it is, as I keep doing with these damn Swiss. That's the one rule I can't seem to ever remember. One part of it is, maybe not so much in this scenario. Let me see. Yeah, it is too. There's Landsknechts and there's Swiss pike. And they're not all that easy to distinguish. There's a word on there, but my eyes aren't the best in the world. And like many of the things in this game, for example, having to page through the rule book continuously to find out, oh, can I fire reaction fire of this type? Can I do this? It wouldn't be a big deal if there weren't, if there were just a couple special units, maybe one special unit in each scenario or whatever. But nearly every scenario is made up of all kinds of units that have to be handled specially. And no matter what the units are, you got to look them up, right? But yes, they kind of persist throughout all the scenarios. And I guess, at some point I would get used to it all. But it just doesn't come as easily as any of the other games in this series. And then you add on the burden of all the special rules that are in each scenario, and wow. Anyway, I don't know. For the Swiss, it would be kind of cool if they had some kind of symbol on them. Yeah, I know the counters are pretty crowded already with all those values, especially leaders, but it would be kind of neat to have something that just reminds you and blares out, yeah, this is something that you got to pay attention to. Maybe just writing the word Swiss in a different color would help me. I don't know. And the grand effect of the Spanish turn is to bring a few units on. That's it. Nothing down here. These guys didn't get a continuation. Like cav, they can run away, whatever the hell, I don't know. These guys are probably disordered. They probably can't. They'll get killed. Maybe, I don't know. Just continue to plow forward, killing the last of the arquebusiers that's kicking around there. And there's a... Killed the leader too. That was 2 more points. We're up to 43 on the Spanish flight level. I didn't activate these. I just did the aqua and the pink to pretty much clear out the threat to back here. Using my light cav to shield and screen my artillery piece. Although these cav can't get there, but something from here could conceivably come running through and sneak in and hit it. For whatever that's worth. It's not much, but it's just 1 point. In the initial activation, these guys came streaming forward. I'm planning on making this my line, which is just about perfect. And all the Spanish reinforcements come in from down here. The only threat is, hey, what happens down in Pavia? So far, not a lot, because I've had to focus down here, and the points are just mounting up so heavily that I don't know. Spaniards keep pouring on. Question is when I'm going to trigger this. Same thing with the Spaniards. When can I afford to use one of my activations on a standard? Now, if I recall, I have to look up special rules for the scenario again. I don't know whether this does not work with a standard activation as far as I can see. So if I use my free activation on the standard with the French, I'm giving up 2 units that get to move. If I'm using it with the Spanish, I'm giving up 1 and maybe this, but it's a little easier for the Spaniards. But for the French, it's really kind of a tough thing. I would love to start getting my cannon in place, etc., but I think I gotta rally some of these units. Although these guys are, that's a lot of points there that I could slam in the rear of, and the retired guys, you know what? I gotta go with this. I gots to go with it. So yeah, we'll do our regular 2 activations and leave this open. That may mean we lose some points and some units that we otherwise wouldn't lose. Because we only have 1 space left for a retired piece, but I think this is for the best. Look up some more rules. I just moved these. Got one of the cannon in here under the cavalry. Over here, these artillery, one of them had to pull back. Actually, a couple of them were in danger from these light cav. They could have run in and scored up some artillery, which isn't going to have much effect on the overall word of things. But if those cannons get deployed here, that's going to create some real problems, I think, for the pike coming forward. Just because the pike assaulting the artillery, they're likely to get disordered, and other units can then stand on top of the artillery and defend it. Started plowing in, and we're now engaged with a unit on the standard. That's where we have to find the rule here, because I don't know if I can do a standard rally when there's enemy units next. This kind of thing doesn't usually happen. If the standard had fallen, I wouldn't have to bother looking this up. Not adjacent to enemy units, which means that I've got a problem in that my standard is almost gone. The only thing that can save me is I can bring forces up that can hit the standard, that can hit that pike unit. Which units do I use? Do I activate these? There's advantages to doing that because this guy is more likely to get a continuation. The French standard situation is causing problems. I was able to clear out the immediate threat to the Spanish standard and bring these forces up and kill 2 of those Swiss pike. Hey, I won't forget those 2 anymore. And threw some points onto the French side. And you can see the French points are actually getting up there too. If I can bring in these, I don't remember what that is, like 25 or something. It's a big pile. 25 more flight points. It becomes kind of questionable who's in the lead anymore. So maybe there's a chance. But it's certainly a more exciting battle than the description led it to believe. There's no question of that. Battle's nearly over. The French got 4 continuations. They start off with a rally on the flag, figuring, hey, our points are beginning to get up there. We better worry. And then, let's see. I think I went with the pinkies next, then the greens, then the pinkies, finally the browns, the only ones who could have succeeded on that continuation roll. Well, they had the best chance of it. And then I went back with the pinkies and failed. But basically, combination of, firepower, these light archers doing a carousel. Didn't quite succeed. But the biggest thing was this guy. He came from here, was facing this way, and slammed into a light cav, killed that. That doesn't give me any points because it's already down 1 point. But then managed to stomp on a sword and buckler from behind or from the flank, and the standard. And that means the Spanish aren't going to recover, and these are actually dead. I forgot about that. So that's another 8 points, not full 10, which puts us up to 69. We're over the limit. I thought I was going to have to play out a Spanish activation and see what happens. I'm not so convinced the Spanish have an easy time on this one, mainly because if the French press them hard enough and get them penned in there, it's going to be somewhat problematic. Maybe I took too long getting my Landsknechts onto the board. Maybe I just have to sacrifice a lot of units and get them there. Maybe my standard was probably too far forward. I really wasn't expecting the French to be able to pound me into location like that. But they have decent enough leaders, some continuations, etc. There weren't one biggie, these chits. The Spanish only had one seizure, I think. Or were they the negation? No, they had the seizure. And it got negated by the French. And so they didn't really have the big advantage from the chits that maybe they should have had. I didn't use up both of my double command options. That might have helped. But largely this was a little bit more painful than I expected. I don't think I'm going to be awake enough to set up the next one by the end of tonight. I might get some of this cleared up. But that's Pavia for you. Definitely not what I was led to expect from the scenario rules. Of course, the Swiss cheating, again, just gave them, certainly that could have been just the edge of pressure that was needed. There weren't a lot. I mean, it's the Aqua guys who were the cheating Swiss, but I forgot to roll again. Total mental block on that roll. I mean, it really is. And there's nothing on the counters except the word Swiss, and there's so many pike that aren't Swiss. But even when my Swiss units were under effect by it, I'm pretty sure, only Swiss units, I'm pretty sure I was unable to catch that roll. I don't know why, but it just doesn't stick with me. You can see most of the reinforcements didn't make it on. The Landsknechts did, but whatever. Pavia didn't really come out and engage. Just ended too quickly. Spaniards got broken up here. All right, let's send this up. Wee.